Welcome back to Documentary First, an inside look at a first-time filmmaker's journey. I'm your host, Jason Rugg, filling in for Josh Lindsay, as usual. And with us is our first-time filmmaker, Christian Taylor.
Hey, Josh, how you doing? Jason.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
And we're also joined by, Christian, do you want to introduce?
Yes, Flavie Poisson. We are reunited after
a year and a half.
It's really hard to believe. So the last time we were with Flavie, she was in my house.
Yeah, March 2020.
Yes,
22nd of March, last time.
You have that burned into your memory.
Yeah.
Sounds like. So we had Flavie and her boyfriend Thomas on the podcast about that time, I think, right around when COVID had happened. If you haven't listened to those episodes from, March 2020, I suggest you go back. It was a very funny conversation because Flavie and Thomas had quite the adventure. Why don't you give us a short recap on that?
Yes, we were in Canada. It was so cold, and we were stuck in like a cabin, something like that, a wood small house. And so we were freezing, and we called Christian to know if we could come back to a house.
Yes. And what was interesting is they kept telling me they were going woofing in Canada. And because of their French accent, I thought they were saying roofing, and they were going to be doing roofing in Canada in March, whatever. And it was snowy. And I have since learned they were not doing roofing. They were doing woofing, which is?
Woofing is like when you work in France and you have lodging and you have food while you are working for this farm.
Yes, that's what woofing is. That's a new term that I have learned. And then she came to our house and we were doing all sorts of things. They were helping me. The most important thing she and Thomas were doing, they were helping me with the rights work, getting all the paperwork signed from people in the film, making sure that we had all the rights for the footage that we were using, the archival footage. They were working with people in France to get the things that we needed. They also toured with me in film festivals. And so it was fantastic because they would dress up as, civilians from the 40s. They would go with us to film festivals and meet people. It was really wonderful. And then the last film festival we were at, it was March 13th, 2020, which was a very big date. As soon as the show was over, we learned that the entire world had shut down for COVID. And it then ensued a really stressful time of trying to figure out if they were going to stay in my house till COVID was over, which I would have loved that. But
me too.
But of course, now we know it's a year and a half later. And so we were separated sort of abruptly. And that was very hard for me and my project, the progress that we needed. But how did it make you feel?
Yeah, that was very hard for us too, because we had to go back to France, but we didn't have any place to live because we let our flat before leaving to go to Canada and to the US. So we had to find another place, and we had to be in lockdown during 15 days. And then there was a 2 months lockdown, and to go to buy some bread or to go to the grocery, we had to have a paper to write our name, the hour we were leaving, and we couldn't go more than an hour away from our house. So it lasted 2 months like this.
So that reminded me when you said to me, it was like we had to have a paper in order to go somewhere. I was like, that rings a bell.
Yeah.
What did that feel like? Did it feel like you were under occupation?
Yeah, we felt, not the same way, but we felt closest to the people who used to live under the German occupation during World War II. Yeah.
Yeah. I've said many times the Americans have never been occupied. We don't really know what it means to lose our freedom, to go here or to do that. But now that the pandemic has happened and we were all on lockdown, even for us in the United States, that's the closest we've ever been being told what we can and cannot do. It was interesting. So we have been talking, as always, virtually over social media and emails and text messages, messenger. But it was very hard because we were not together. We missed each other. And as you know, the reason I'm sitting here with Flavie now is we have a very interesting story to tell. So we're very happy to be reunited, but it's in a very strange circumstance. So, Jason, let me ask you, what do you know about what the last few weeks or months have been like for me? What do you remember? Do you even know where I am?
All right. So I had to ask before we started recording. I was like, I think she's in France right now. I couldn't tell if you were in the Netherlands or France. So what I know is that you've been going over there to do some pre-work on the film and also meet up with your son potentially. And there was the Market Garden event that you were going to be going to, and that's pretty much the brief summary of what you were going to be doing pre-work for the film in the Netherlands, etc. So
Yeah,
that's all I really know.
That's true. To recap, I was kind of in Mississippi, for 2 months helping my dad. And I really didn't think that it was going to be possible to do any research for the Brave Dutch until the very last minute when I found out that I could come to the Netherlands, but it would be best to go through France. So I thought, oh, that's wonderful. I will fly to France and see my friends. We will do things, that have to do with the girl who wore freedom. Which is great because we are screening, as many people know, on June 5th, 2022 in Normandy. And so I've been able to do a little bit of advanced work preparing for that. I got to see my friends and I got to do things that I've never been able to do. So because of this project and because I'm always on a tight timeline when I'm in France, I've really only been to Omaha Beach, Utah Beach, Pointe du Hoc,
the cemetery,
Carentan, and the cemetery, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
The Angle-Villemplan. That's about it. So this time I didn't have the Girl Who Wore Freedom work to do. So we decided we would do some, new tourist things to do together. So we also connected with Michelle Coupee, who's actually sitting in our hotel room right now, waving to everyone. Michelle Coupee was my co-producer on The Girl Who Wore Freedom. She's going to be a co-producer on The Brave Dutch. So she is hosting me, put me up there, and she's coming on this adventure with me. So to start out, we decided with Thomas and Flavie, since they are tour guides, to see something new. So why don't you tell about where you took us?
Yeah, we've been to the Pegasus Bridge, so where the British paratroopers and British gliders were dropped on D-Day, and we were as well to a very new monument that has been inaugurated in June 2019. It's like a huge monument to commemorate as well the British troops who landed on Gull Beach and on Sword Beach. So this monument is on Gull Beach and is super huge and is wonderful, and you have a great view on Gull Beach. So yes, that's very impressive. That was very impressive. And that was the first time you went there. Second time for me, but I just discovered it like a month ago. So that's very new.
Yes. So it was very interesting because I have a friend from high school. Her name is Anne Leidecker, and she has a friend named Liam O'Connor that lives in London. She calls me one day and says, "Oh, Christian, you're not going to believe this, but my friend Liam is the architect for the Normandy British Memorial that's opening in 2019. And they invited me and Michelle Coupee to come to this opening in 2019. And then it was closed and nobody really could come. And so we didn't get to see it. But it is spectacular. Tell why you think it's so amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing because everything is well thought. When you arrive, you have like two doors, and you see the sea behind the two doors. And when you move, you start to see the monument and the British soldiers. There are a lot of columns all around the monuments. And on each column, you have the names of all the British soldiers who died. And when you fly over the monument, it designed the flag, the British flag. So everything is well thought, and that's wonderful.
Yes, and at the beginning when
awesome.
you walk, do you remember those columns? You walk through
Yeah.
columns, and the columns tell you the history of the British and what they did, sort of in this big battle. They were one of the major allies, obviously. Winston Churchill put on a lot of pressure on our president FDR to get involved. So thanks to the British, we were there. And we don't know, the Americans don't know a lot about the British involvement and what they did. Many people will know in Normandy, you have the American sector, which we talk almost exclusively about in the Guerrilla War Freedom. And that's Utah Beach and Omaha Beach and Pointe du Hoc.
Mhm.
And then you have the British sector, which is Gold Beach and Juno Beach, and then Sword, which is the Canadian sector of that. So this took place on Gold Beach. This memorial overlooks Gold Beach. And on those columns, you learn about what the British did and how they, sacrificed for the cause of freedom. And it is very peaceful. It's well integrated and thought out with so many different things. For example, I noticed this beautiful oak, and I noticed it was on these benches. I noticed it was on the top of the pergolas. And we were able to call Liam after we visited and tell Liam how remarkable his memorial was. And I asked him, what is the meaning of the wood? And do you remember what he said?
Yeah, it was a wood taken from trees, from the Napoleon era.
Yeah, I think it was, Michelle,
that.
wasn't it called French oak or something like that?
Yeah, they were, it was a French oak from the, that was from the Loire Valley.
Yes. So it was this hard
Yeah,
French
it's
oak from
right.
the Loire Valley, and the name of it, it was this hard, everlasting oak. And so he talked about how this oak represented the strength of France and of Britain. And anyway, it was brilliant. And I highly recommend a visit to see that. That led me to be more curious about this British sector, which led us to the Pegasus Bridge.
Yeah. Then we went to the Pegasus Bridge, and just next to it there was the museum. So we had the chance to visit the museum very quickly, but we saw a replica of a Orsa. The Orsa is the British glider.
Let me say this for her because it doesn't make sense. So we saw the replica of a Horsa in American.
Yeah, because
yeah, it's HORSA. It's Horsa. I didn't understand what she was saying. Yeah. So, and interestingly enough, the Pegasus Bridge that we see today is not the original bridge. The original one they took down and they put it in this museum.
Yes.
So if you want to see the Pegasus Bridge, you go and see the location, which is now a new bridge, but it looks the same design.
The same, it's just bigger. Because now trucks are bigger than in the 1940s, and
yeah. And when you are there, there is a little restaurant. Do you remember the name?
Cafe.
You can think about that for
yeah.
a minute, what the name is, but it is a cafe, and it's a very typical French cafe that was there in 1945. And it was part of this battle. And the daughter that lived in it is still there today, and she is still running the cafe.
Oh, Café Gondry.
Café Gondry.
There we go. Thank you, Michelle. Café Gondry. Gondry. So I would really strongly recommend you going to visit that. There's lots of memorabilia inside this cafe. And why don't you explain the Horsa glider?
Horsa. Yeah. So Horsa gliders are British-made gliders. So they are made in wood, and they are bigger than the American-made gliders. The American-made gliders are named the Waco, like the city in
Texas.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and the gliders, if people don't know, I would have never wanted to be in one. It was like this wood cage with canvas over it, and they had no power. So they were pulled behind a C-47,
Yeah,
right?
that's it.
Yeah, and they were pulled behind by a rope, and then they just cut the rope and let it go, and they had to just glide down to a field. They were designed to break apart, right, Flavie?
Yeah, that's it.
And then they would
Wow.
be able to get out their trucks and their
They could put a jeep, they could put a cannon. In a horse house, they could put 30 men because it's a big one. But in the Waco gliders, they could put 13 men, so less.
men.
Wow.
And so at this, at the Pegasus Bridge, you learn more about these, and you can see
You can see
a lot of things. The other thing I learned was they have a big exhibit on the Bailey bridges. So Bailey bridges are very famous here in this, World War II zone. They were designed by a British architect whose last name was Bailey. And they were just as they say in A Bridge Too Far, the envy of the Western world, back then in 1944. Tell us how the Bailey Bridge worked.
Yeah, the Bailey Bridge is the American and the British came with it to build a bridge with just like pieces of bridge, and it's a metal bridge when you see it, and everything is just built once they are over there in Normandy.
It's kind of like Legos. Do you know what Legos are? It's kind of like Legos where you can put it together.
That's a Lego bridge.
It's a Lego bridge, yes. So it was brilliant. So I learned more about that. And so that was wonderful. And then we said goodbye to Flavie and Thomas, and we learned that we were going to reconnect in the Netherlands. So Michelle Coupee and I decided to go to the Market Garden commemorations because we wanted to learn about the Dutch experience. And part of that was, what happened in Market Garden on September 17th, 1944. And so we figured if we were going to go to the Holland section to Apeldoorn to learn about John Lau's story and the brave Dutch that kept him alive, it made sense to go to the Market Garden commemorations at the same time. I almost titled this episode Special Ops and what was it?
Spinoffs.
Spinoffs. Thank you, Michelle. Special Ops and Spinoffs, because my son Jonah at the last minute ended up being scheduled to be here as well. So he is part of this special operation called Falcon Leap. It's been fascinating to learn about. He and the soldiers from Britain, France, Poland, Italy, and the Netherlands all came together to practice jumping and doing personal like deliveries of items, weapons, food, clothing, things like that. And they also did mail, not mail, personnel droppings is what they call them, personnel droppings. So this whole Falcon Leap operation was a practice exercise for many people. They got their jumps, but also they all want to earn wings from other countries. And we learned that there are 4 criteria for earning wings from another country, and you have to meet at least 2 of them. One is that you use another country's parachute, that you use another country's, or you jump out of another country's plane. And the 2 others, Michelle, my co-producer, what are the 2 others? They jump out of the plane, they jump out of the parachute. They have a pilot of the other country.
Yeah.
And there's one more, which you'll think of it in a minute, I'm sure. But anyway, then when you do that, you get the wings of the other country. They also spend time exchanging patches. And the whole point of this really is international relations. They learn how the other planes work. They learn how to communicate with each other. They learn how to solve problems when things go wrong, because inevitably they do. They teach each other, medical tricks or just different things that they have, and they do training together. So Jonah was part of that operation. He is a part of the 5th Quartermaster Theater Aerial Delivery Company at the 16th Sustainment Brigade. And I wasn't sure I was going to get to see him, but we did. That was a wonderful surprise. But he was even able to come with us to Market Garden, which was just a wonderful experience. Now you may be asking yourself, Jason, because I'm sure you have so many questions because I've given you so much time to ask them. How did Flavie end up here? So, Flavie,
Yeah.
why don't you explain when you left our house, what you did from the pandemic and how you ended up here today?
So when I went back to France, I recovered my job that I just left before. I used to work as a promotion officer at the Utah Beach Museum. So I continued to work over there. And the beginning of October 2020, there was another lockdown. And then we couldn't welcome visitors anymore in the museum. And so I just found another job since a few months, since 4 months. I now work at the City Hall of Carentan, which is just behind Utah Beach. I mean, between the Utah Beach and Omaha Beach in the middle. And I work as promoting the City Hall and the Town Hall of Carentan through World War II and through memory tourism. So that's my new job. And we were invited by the mayor of Meyerstadt. Meyerstadt is a few cities from Holland, and they invited the town hall of Carentan to be part of the ceremonies of the 77th. And so that's why I ended up there.
Well, and what's interesting, if people wonder why they would, out of the blue, just, invite you here, explain the connection between Carentan and Meyerstadt.
Yeah, because Carentan has been liberated by the 101st Airborne Division. So a lot of soldiers fought on the roads to take bridges, to take the village and everything. And that's the same for Meyerstadt, because the road, National Road number 7, so between Eindhoven and Arnhem, has to be taken by the Allies, so by the American paratroopers and the British paratroopers. And so the sector of Meyerstadt has been liberated by the 101st Airborne Division. So we have the same history. That's the reason why we have been invited.
Yeah, they've been trying to figure out how to learn from each other. In a sense, some of the soldiers' stories began in Carentan and then ended in Meyerstadt. The most notable of which, I think, you please correct me if I'm wrong, is Robert Cole. And Robert Cole was a colonel. Mm-hmm. He was a colonel in the 101st Airborne, and he was instrumental in the Bayonet charge at the very beginning of the Battle of Carentan. And he kind of opened things up, and it was a very brave action that he did. And sadly, he was killed in this area, right?
Yes, right. He was killed in Holland during the battle. Yeah. So that's a big connection, because that's a huge character. An important soldier who fought in Carentan.
And what's interesting is they thought maybe the two cities would be able to learn from one another how they do this memory tourism.
Yeah.
So is that true? Did you learn?
Yeah, that's really interesting to see how they are doing, because it's the first time we've been invited to a ceremony like this outside of Normandy. So we are used to our protocol and everything. And that's funny to see how they are doing here in Holland. It's very different. Very different.
I would say the most surprising thing to me is I expected things to be like they were in Normandy.
Yes.
Here. They have not been anything like they are in Normandy. Nothing. And there are many reasons why, as I think about it. Normandy is very unique in that it is a battlefield spread over many cities and towns, but the cities and towns are very small. And, for sure, the American sector, everything is within 15, 20 minutes. But even if you drive from the Pegasus Bridge, where you've got, Gold, Juneau, right around there, to the westernmost part of Utah Beach, it's like an hour, right, Michelle? Hour and a half?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not that far apart, and you can easily get between the ceremonies. But D-Day happened in a very short period, space. Well, Market Garden and the operations here it wasn't close together. It was all the way from,
All along the road.
all along the
Number
road,
7,
all
yeah.
the way up to Arnhem. And there were some successes early on in the bottom of the Netherlands, but they got harder. As you know, Arnhem was a bridge too far. And if you haven't seen that movie, I recommend everyone see that movie.
You've seen it yesterday?
I did it.
Right?
Well, I saw it many times, but Michelle saw it for the first time. But the thing I think that's so different here, there were different outcomes as well. So not only are the battlefields spread out and not sort of in the same place, there was a different outcome. So in Normandy, you're celebrating a huge victory on the part of the Allies. So when you go to Normandy, there are giant celebrations. It's like a big party. And you have these small commemorations, surely, at the cemeteries and just in places. There is a lot of reverence, but there's also a lot of celebration. And so what did you find here, the differences?
Yeah, we didn't see any reenactors, any jeep. There wasn't the events like balls, concerts and everything, but maybe that's because of COVID, because I've heard that usually it's crowded. So
yes, I do
fair.
think we are here in a very bad off time. And I think that if it was not for COVID, there would be more things.
I think so.
One example is Michelle and I were fortunate enough to go to the Market Garden parachute drop. Now it is the Netherlands version of La Fière in Normandy. And typically I was told there would be 30,000 people there.
Oh, wow.
Well, there were thousands of people there when Michelle and I went, but it wasn't 30,000, not at all. And so we never saw really anything advertised for anything. It was very difficult to find any information. And so, I think it was COVID was affecting things a lot. The other thing I would say, however, is I've learned that the Dutch are a very quiet, humble people.
Yeah,
they are not as expressive or braggadocious, maybe, as for sure Americans. And I don't know that they want to crow about everything here that they do or that they have. And so they seem to be more quiet, more reserved. And so I noticed there was a difference in that kind of celebration. So it was more difficult for us to find out what to do. And most everything was not in English. It was in
Yes.
Dutch. And that was very challenging. Ironically, the people here all speak English. They all speak English. But in Normandy, everything is always written in French
and English.
and English. Everything's always translated in French and English. So I would say it would have helped Michelle and I. I mean, our first trouble was that we assumed wrongly that it was going to be just like Normandy, and it wasn't. Two, we did not have any sort of guide or anyone who had ever been here before to tell us, what to do. So we were trying to figure it out on our own. And three, we did not understand that everything was going to be written in Dutch. So that was a little challenging to figure out. So I would say if you're going to plan to go to the Market Garden ceremonies, and I do highly recommend it, try to find out from someone else who has been there the certain things to do or go and see. Now, we went to a ceremony at the windmill in Erde, which was a beautiful ceremony at a very old windmill that they've had to build back up after. What did you learn? What did you think?
It was wonderful because I don't know, there was an orchestra playing music.
Oh, wow.
It was less formal than what we used to have as a ceremony in Normandy. It was more like a big family all together. They were asking the children to say some sentences at the microphone, And yeah, the lights behind, we were during the evening, so the light, the sun set was wonderful. And yes, that was a great ceremony, very powerful and very emotional.
Yeah, I thought the same. I thought the same. And Michelle and I were talking about the music was so beautiful. It was very evocative and, brought up a lot of emotions, and they played the music while they were laying the wreaths. So the order of the ceremonies are similar between Normandy and Market Garden, but there are differences. And the music was really notable, I thought, while they were doing that. And the children, they had them take a big part, I thought, in that ceremony. They wrote speeches, and one would read in Dutch and the other would read in English. And they seemed very proud, didn't you think?
Yeah, they were so proud.
Yeah, the children seemed very proud. So that was beautiful. And then today we were also at a remarkable ceremony. Both of these ceremonies we were invited to had a 101st Airborne representation from the United States. But typically when they would send over
hundreds only for one ceremony, and there are thousands and thousands GIs everywhere, but here only 4.
Yeah, today there were only 4
for this COVID year,
and it was COVID. But at least they were here. The United States government at least sent them. So the second ceremony we had was today. And can you tell a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was in Sint-Ordenrode. I don't have the right accent because I speak French but not Dutch. And it was at the Monument to the Dutch. So this is a monument made by the American to give to the Dutch people. And so that was a bit different than the commemoration in Erde. There were music as well, there were orchestra. But yeah, it was different, but it was great as well.
So this one in this town, what was unique is that the 101st veterans, the veterans gave the people of this town a monument that thanked them for their help on this road to liberty. I thought that was very powerful. It's the first time I've ever seen a veteran organization do that for a community.
Yeah.
So that was unique. It was beautiful. Watch our social media if you're listening to this, because we will put up pictures or some little videos. Also, Carentan will be putting up pictures and videos of what the Carentan people did. So why don't you explain what your officials, your mayor and assistant mayor, their names, and explain what they did in these ceremonies?
So the delegation of Carentan arrived like maybe 3 days ago. So they were the mayor of Carentan, Jean-Pierre Leneur, and the deputy mayor, Sébastien Lenné, with their wives and with the communication promotion team. And so we had a very warming welcome by the Mayorstadt mayor. We had a battlefield tour to see the historic places about Mayorstadt, where the 101st Airborne Division soldiers fought. We assisted 3 commemorations, the one at the windmill, the one this afternoon in Sint-Ordenrode and at the British Graves Cemetery. We had a rooftop restaurant yesterday that was beautiful.
Was it the Silly Fox?
Yes.
So they went to the 1-star Michelin restaurant called the Silly Fox, but I heard it was delicious.
We had like 14 plates. It never stopped.
I heard it was very long.
It was long, from 8 p.m. to midnight.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah.
They eat like French people, I guess. So it was neat to see the, mayors of these towns invite the people of Carentan to lay wreaths, and they introduced them and explain the connection. So that was very special. What I really enjoyed about today's ceremony was the second half. They took us to this cemetery behind the airborne, monument that the 101st veterans gave. It was one of the most beautiful cemeteries I've seen. It was a combination of a cemetery and a garden, like a beautiful memory garden where, you would walk through and you would see the graves, but you wanted to stay because there was beautiful art there. Did you see the big boulder?
Yes, I've seen it. Yeah.
So one of the most striking things there was the hill of Golgotha. And so there was this big rock hill, and on the top you had the crucifixion of Christ with Mary and John at the feet of the cross. And underneath you had sort of in the cave, Christ with his, crown of thorns. And you had some other things carved into the stone that were just very, very powerful. And then there were some gardens that you could walk through. And each grave was very different than we do in the United States. They have a slab up at the top, and I've seen these in France as well, where the people who have died, usually there is a picture of them or some sort of lithograph in a glass stone, and they have some of the things that they liked in life, whether they're a dog sitting on top of the grave table or like plants that they love. Someone had a bike, someone had a trumpet on theirs. And it felt so personal, like you kind of wanted to learn more about these people who had died and were buried there. So I thought it was, I mean, did you agree? What did you think?
Yeah, that's totally true. Yeah, but I'm used to it because we have the same in France, but you want to know what these people have lived, and thanks to the little object put on the graves, and you have their picture as well.
Picture. So there was a lot to learn. I think a lot of positive things and things that were different. And I just think that, if you're going to come to these ceremonies, you need to expect them not to be like Normandy. I think do your research, because every town is different. Eindhoven's battle was different than Nijmegen's, was different than Arnhem's. And so the celebrations are different in each place. And there's not one unified, ceremony for all of those things. So that was very interesting. The reason that I wanted to call this special ops and spinoffs is because, in a sense, a different film born out of what I learned the first time brought us all together. I am here for the Brave Dutch, but yet on my Brave Dutch team, I am working with Flavie, who's going to be involved in the reenactments and wardrobes and things like that. Michel Coupee, who was the co-producer before and lives in, this Europe area. Thomas Boisson, who was here before, he will be helping us with reenactments. Flo Plana will be a director in the reenactments. So we are still collaborating now, just on a different subject. So now for the rest of the time that I'll be here, our attention is going to be turned to working on the Brave Dutch.
Wow. Okay. So how long have you been there? How is this a week? Is this 2 weeks? How long have you been there?
Good question. So I got to the country on September 10th. And it's September 19th. So 9 days. So
9 days. And how long do you have left?
So I'm supposed to come back by October 10th. So 4 more weeks.
Okay. So you've got a while, and now you're going to be working on the film. Okay.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, we've talked about this before. Once you make one film and you meet people and you're in the business, oftentimes it leads to something else. So The Girl Who Wore Freedom led us to Virgil Films, which gave us the opportunity for the Brave Dutch, right? But now, since we all came together with the town of Carentan, we would take lunch together, and we were talking about different ideas about the city of Carentan. One of the things that's interesting about this town is that not a lot of people know about it. People know about St. Mary Glees because of the longest day. They may know about, Utah Beach. So that's in the town of St. Marie du Mont, but it's Utah Beach. But nobody knows about Carentan. I mean, what do you know?
I mostly know about it because of you working on the film and talking about it. But other than that, I don't think I'd ever heard of Carentan before you'd started production. I
Yes.
think that's the first time I heard about it.
So we started talking with Denny Vandenbrink was also here. He's a 101st Airborne expert. That's not his main job, that's his hobby, but he's written books about it. It really is a passion for him. So he was here for this commemoration. He works for the town of Carenthon as well. And I started thinking they really want people to understand about what Carenthon is, why it's important, why tourists should want to go. And Denise said to me, it is the key. It is the key to unlocking the road to liberty. That title actually came from Michel Coupee because we were sitting at breakfast. He talked about it being a key. Michel said, yes, that unlocks this road to liberty. And in a sense, it's true, right?
Totally.
Yeah. Can you explain why?
Because Carenthon is in the middle between Utah Beach and Omaha Beach. So the soldiers who landed in Utah Beach had the mission to cut what we call the Cotentin Peninsula, so the north of La Manche, to stuck the German soldiers in the north to go quickly in Cherbourg, to take the harbor of Cherbourg, and then to go in the south, take Carenthon, because it will allow them to join back all the soldiers landed in Omaha Beach. That's the reason why.
Yes, it's this central hub. We call it a hub, where from this hub, these roads all came off of it. And, both the Germans and the Americans knew that Carenthon was an important city to control because it controlled the roads and it controlled the canals, and they all passed through Carenthon. So some of the biggest battles early on were in Purple Heart Lane, where there was a huge bloody battle. And then, the Battle of Carenthon itself, when it began and people Robert Cole led people in the bayonet charge to get in. So, but nobody knows about that. And so I said, well, I think it would be really interesting. Americans watch TV. They've learned about Normandy through the movies, Band of Brothers. It is episode 3 of Band of Brothers, by the way. If you want to learn more about Carenthon, you can rent that. I think it's on Amazon Prime right now and learn more about Carenthon. But it really is something that if we were to sit down and tell the story of everything that happened, and Denny Vandenbrink said he would see it as a 6-part effort to win the town of Carenthon. There were 6 different things that happened that allowed the Allies to take the town back and, for it to turn the tide of the war. And so he said we could easily make a film where we tell 6 episodes of each one of these stories, and then perhaps pitch it again, like we're doing with the Brave Dutch, to, find funding to make this film. So I find it so fascinating that, once we started doing one film, it kind of leads into others and different collaborations. So it's been very rewarding to be here this week to talk about how and the Girl Who Wore Freedom has been proof of concept for what we're talking about. Because when people see my film, the first thing they say to me is, I want to go to Normandy. I want to see these things and these places. And remember when we were in Greenville, what would people say to you?
Yeah, they told us that they wanted to come and visit everything. And we were here as I'm interested in civilian 1940s civilian clothes, and they found it wonderful, and they wanted so deep to see all these historic places.
Yeah. So I really do think film and story moves the heart of people, particularly Americans, where once you learn about one person, one of the things I would love to tell the story of is Robert Cole and the bayonet charge. He was an amazing man that ended up dying here, of course, but nobody knows of that. And so I'd love to tell that story, and I think we would be really pulled in and engaged, and then want to go see where the bayonet charge was.
Yeah, that will be the next project.
Yes, so we're
all together.
This will be our next project together, is what we're hoping. We'll see. But Yeah, it's been a really interesting time. I did not expect this to come out of our collaboration from this time, but when you're brainstorming with other creators and, collaboratives, ideas happen. So you never know.
Wow. Well, that's incredible. I'm excited. Like, this is making me really excited to see what the next thing is, what all this is going to come together to make. I'm so excited.
I told Michelle Coupee, wouldn't it be strange if, the Brave Dutch never got greenlit, but we try to do another pitch we've already titled it. It would be 40 ans, Unlocking the Road to Liberty, something like that. Thank you, Michelle Coupee. We would, and we got it greenlit for that. That would be so ironic. Who knows? Who knows? We may not have a greenlit project for anything at all.
Or both.
Yeah. Or maybe we do both. I don't know. I don't know how all that would work, but I do know, even if nothing came from that conversation, another thing happened. We thought about how can we educate people other than the film about 40 ans and what a strategic, important place it was. And we ended up having an impromptu meeting today with the mayor and the deputy mayor and the communications department and Denny Vandenbrink and Michelle and I. Michelle and I are Americans and can say what Americans would like to see and how they could be drawn into the town of 40 ans. And they were very interested in that. So
yes, yeah, the mayor was very interesting, and we have to plan a lot of meetings in the next months to continue to work on it.
Yes, because we really would like people to discover this jewel. I told the mayor, 40 ans is in my heart because it is a wonderful place to visit. It's the one place in Normandy, I feel, that's a city big enough where you can stay, you can walk around it. It has a port that's beautiful. It has wonderful little restaurants and places to eat. There are interesting things to see. One of the most heartbreaking stories was there is a silver star ceremony that, well, you tell it. You're the tour guide on the Place de République. So tell the story.
Yeah, there were several ceremonies on the Place de la République, but main ones when the colonels received the silver star. And just a few sentences about a monument that will be built on the Place de la République with the 4 colonels and this little girl that has been killed during the Silver Star celebration.
Yeah, there was a German left somewhere, right?
Yeah, there were Germans left in 40 ans, and they bombed the Place de la République, and pieces of shrapnel wounded civilians, and a little girl was killed. Her name was Danielle Lenné, and we saw her on pictures and on videos about that ceremony, and that's very moving because we see that she's coming to see the soldiers, and just a few minutes after she was killed by a piece of shrapnel during the Silver Star ceremony on the Place de la République. So this is not well known, and we want really the Place de la République in 40 ans be a main part of the historic places when people go to see Utah Beach, St. Mary. We want people to visit the Place de la République as well. So for now, it is a parking. So firstly, also
it's a parking lot.
We have to move all the cars and to do like a nice place with some bars and everything, music, festivals, and so that's a big project to change the Place de la République because a lot happened during World War II on this place.
Yes, and people just don't know. So they are trying to construct, to raise money to build this monument, this statue that will commemorate the 4 colonels receiving their Silver Star. And also, remember this little girl. She was bringing flowers to these colonels when she was killed. So it's just such a wonderful and sad story that we don't ever want to forget, obviously. So Michelle and I are also figuring out how can we help? What can we do to help promote and bring, more Americans to come and hear this story? So we'll see. It was a very interesting collaborative.
Yes, it was.
Weekend. So yeah.
Oh wow.
Well, there you go,
This
Jason.
has been a jam-packed podcast. I feel like I'm a little overwhelmed. There's just so much information.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of history too,
Yeah.
I mean, what would be your takeaway if I give you a few minutes to think about, as a film, you're a filmmaker in a sense, you're making creative content. What would be the lesson you could learn from listening to these stories?
Yeah, I think it's just what you hit on earlier, where it was like putting creative people together, you will come up with different things. And I know that I've seen that be true in my life, and I think that that's one thing that I've seen other creative people struggle with is like they get too locked into I'm doing this thing and we're talking about this thing right now. And it's not, let's also talk about the other things we could do, the other projects we could be working on together, particularly. I think that that's a major takeaway is just to never shut down ideas, to let them grow and see where they go and talk with people about them, because it will always get better with more creative input.
Yeah, totally true. And I also think you have to keep your hands open. We want to, I think, hold on to our ideas so tightly, and that this is the direction I'm going in. It has to be this or nothing else. And, you just never know what will develop. So I think we have to be open to whatever side roads may come up, listening to others in the creative collaboration. It's lovely if you can listen to them from other countries. I've loved learning, so much. I learned here in Holland that they have a drive-in strawberry store where, yeah, it's crazy, but right where we're in Uden, and right in Uden, they have a lot of, just as anywhere else in Europe, a lot of like circles. What do they call those? Roundabouts. So they have this roundabout right near us, and they have these 3 giant strawberries. And like, we looked at it for a couple of days going, what are those giant strawberries doing there? Well, they're right next to and pointing you to this strawberry drive-in. And so it's like McDonald's, but for strawberries. And so you can drive in, and they have like strawberry milkshakes, strawberry Slurpees. They have Belgian waffles with strawberries and cream on top. They have strawberry jam, like anything you could possibly imagine with strawberries, they have it. And it was strawberries dipped in chocolate were my favorite. Those are phenomenal. I don't even like strawberries. That's what's crazy. But they were delicious. So anyway, what was your favorite memory about being here? Something you learned?
My favorite memory was the ceremony at the windmill. It was so beautiful. Yeah. And the road between the church and the windmill, that was a nice road. But that was my first time in Holland, and it's very cute. You should go.
It is cute.
It is so cute. It's like a big garden. Everything is well done. Everything is beautiful. Yeah, it's a mess everywhere. I mean, sometimes in France, it's the mess.
Yes. Well, in America, you can see like cars on the people's, front lawns, or, things just kind of taken apart. Kind of, this is like typical Netherlands, or like, I don't know what you would call that people, but Swedish, Danish, Dutch, very ordered. And so as Michelle and I were driving around, we said it looked like an American hybrid, because they do have front yards here. It's kind of like America in some ways. You could see the Dutch influence in America based on what we saw here. And they still have houses with thatched roofs. Could you believe the thatched roofs, like the grass on the top of all the roofs? I couldn't believe it, but they're beautiful, and they're still being used today. And it's just very, very different. So I enjoyed learning. We went to Aldi. So I did a post on Instagram.
I saw this.
Yeah. Because I was like, the things you see in Aldi in the Netherlands, it was just so random. The EZ Spa. Did you see that? And the, soccer ball.
Like an inflatable hot tub, pretty much.
Yes, inflatable. So yeah, it's been very educational. So anyway, Flavie, thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's really, really great. Jason, thank you for showing up on a Sunday after, well, I guess it's Sunday morning for you, Sunday
Yeah.
evening for us. Yeah.
I had to set an
Listen.
alarm. I slept in yesterday on accident. And I was like, oh no, I can't sleep in to make sure we got to get this in. So
Yeah, we do. Well, and everybody, thank you so much for listening to this podcast and following along on our journey. I know this isn't your typical what's the film up to these days, but I did want to capture this. Our podcast oftentimes is about capturing the journey, and this is where we are today. So hopefully you enjoyed this podcast as well. If you do enjoy this podcast and you want to keep supporting us, you can join our Patreon campaign. We would really appreciate more supporters. We've sort of been at the, I don't know, I think we're at 10 supporters, maybe 12 right now, but we certainly could use some more. Jason, how can people find us and find that information?
yeah, so they can go to patreon.com/Doc First Podcast. And we're actually up to 14 patrons.
Oh, that's exciting. Yay.
Yeah.
Well, and again, just to remind people, there are some pretty wonderful perks during those giving levels. So check those out. You can still get the film on Apple TV or iTunes. You can sign up for our DVD pre-sale list. You can do that by emailing me at christian@normandystories.com. And please watch our social media. Tell your friends about the film. It was really great. We had not a lot of American soldiers, a handful of American soldiers that we talked to this time from the 82nd Airborne, from the 101st. And we all said to them, my film's on the plane. And they're like, oh, we saw that on the plane. So they were all going to watch it on the way home. So don't forget it's on Delta. And yeah, that's about all there is to remember for today.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening to Documentary First, where we believe everyone has a story to tell and you can be the one to tell it.
Yes, you can. Bye, everybody.
Bye.